Hello, this is a Diary of a Trader, and I want to go over a new kind. Well, it's not new, but it's probably new for a lot of you. A form of analysis that is probably not as common as others. This is a this is a part of what's known as financial astrology, and don't let the name throw you off. Financial astrology is actually it's mathematical psychology based on the science of astronomy. And so how we analyze markets based on the behavior that people exhibit, we also base a lot of our trades on market sentiment. So it's not really any different than trading based off of where the mood of a market is. And moon phases is what we're going to go over today. And before you laugh, moon phases are a very real, tried and true way to trade. They are very effective, and they are you should not use them on their own though. You should use them to complement other forms of analysis. All right. So, for example, let's take a look at the euro dollar. All right. And let's just clear everything off our charts. And let's go take a look at this. Let's scroll out. And here's the euro dollar. And here are our moon phases. So new moons are at the top. New moons mean that there is no moon out. It's dark out. All right. If we were to select format and we select full moon off and new moon off, we're just left with these bars. However, we want to keep these on, so the full moon is down below and the new moon is up top. All right, so full moons mean that it's bright outside, you can see a big bright moon. New moons mean that the sky is dark, there's no moon. And depending on the instrument, you're going to notice some type of pattern. And for the euro dollar, what we see is that during a new moon phase, you can usually find that you're at a market top of some sort. And so during a new moon, you have a high probability of being able to short that market if you're in a bear trend. If we're in a bull trend, then what that tells us is that on full moons, we have a high probability of trades moving up for those 2 weeks. Okay, so let's see how this plays out. Let's look at each one of these individually. So let's get rid of the new moons, and let's just look at the full moons. All right, just the full moon phases. Okay, so here's a full moon. If we would have bought at the beginning of the full moon, that would have been a winning trade. And again, on the euro dollar pair, it seems that full moons are near or at a type of a market bottom, or at least you can find a market bottom somewhere within that moon phase. And so the idea is to take a long position during a full moon. So here we have a full moon that would have been profitable. Let's just kind of look at how profitable these would have been. So if we would have taken a long right at the open, okay, and closed it at the close, oops, that would have been 160 pips on that trade. And then let's see if we traded at the open of a full moon and sold at the close. That would have been 315 pips. We'll do this full moon. And if we sold at the close, 354 pips. Now, we're getting into a thing where we're not going to see an increase all the time. We would have been down 46.6 pips. And then look at here. At the close, up 282 pips. And over here, oops. If we were to buy at the open and then sell at the close, we would have been up a total of 19.6 pips. Now, you can see that, in a strong uptrend with the euro dollar, full moons yield really great results for going for finding a bottom and then selling at the end of that phase. We can see this repeats itself over and over and over again, and if it seems kind of silly and obnoxious that you can do this, that's okay. That is perfectly normal. And then because we can see the inverse of this behavior too. Oftentimes when we know that there's a change of trend coming, it is in response to the inverse moon, and we see a dramatic trade off of that area, usually right on it. And so let's take off the full moons and let's go to the new moons. Now we can tell that during a very strong bull move that, we really do not want to try and short during a new moon. Okay, we could consider taking profit during a new moon, during a strong uptrend, or we could consider, just sitting and staying flat, not adding until we get back in. But notice what happens when we take a look here at, this activity. A good sign that we were going to be entering into a new trend change was when we finally had a new moon that had a significant drive down, all right, followed by kind of a muted move up, and then we have another significant drive down. Okay, so if we look at these swings, these are more pronounced. So if we would have bought at the open, if we would have shorted at the open and then covered at the close, that would have been a 187 pip move. If we would have done that most recently here and then sold at the close, that would have been a 303 pip move. So you can see that, when you're entering into a bear trend, when you see two dramatic drops off of the new moon phases, that's a pretty good idea that you are entering in a new bear trend and that we probably do not want to entertain going long yet. Now the question is, well, what happens when, it doesn't move that way? Well, let's look at a different market. Let's go ahead and look at the British pound and the US dollar. Because it's important to know this, that not every instrument is going to show you that not every instrument, not every chart is going to have the same response to these levels. Okay, the pound dollar seems to respond to the full moon and new moon just like the euro does, but you have to look at the past price activity of each instrument to determine for yourself whether or not this is true. The FTSE 100, the British stock exchange, it responds to the inverse. It likes new moons for market lows where it can go long, so it operates on the inverse. But the Bitcoin dollar pair, not the Bitcoin dollar pair, the pound dollar pair trades like this. Let's actually take a look at the dollar index and see how that operates. About the same. And let's look at Bitcoin. How does Bitcoin trade these areas? It seems to also like the full moon to the new moon. Full moons being bullish and the new moons being bearish. But notice a lot of those are attached to the dollar. Let's take a look at the pound, the euro pound Forex pair, and let's see if that's any different. Not really. Nope. So we could say that in Forex, at least in Forex and cryptocurrencies, it seems to be a fairly consistent process that you have a bias for a market being bearish for a new moon phase and bullish for a full moon phase. But again, we want to use other forms of analysis. So let's go back to the euro. And the moon phase itself is not enough to dictate a trade. So we need to do other things. So one thing that we can use is oscillators or other forms of an oscillator, like other types of oscillators like the RSI, or I like the composite index. You know, if we look at where these levels go, let's see, we have a, looks like a market bottom starting at a full moon. Where's our composite index? Is it below these two averages? Sure, this is a good buying opportunity. You know, let's kind of keep fast forwarding and see if others show up. Actually, there's one back here too. Are there good shorting opportunities if we get into these accelerated conditions near a market high, short-term market high? But we're looking more for bullish buy entries based on our charts. You can see as we're moving along here that we do see we can see some nice correlative moves based on where a new moon and a full moon is going to start. And then if our conditions are met where we can go in the direction of that moon phase, then we have a high probability of catching some really nice profit in the process. And most recently, this is probably a good example here. We were in an accelerated zone, an elevated zone here that was giving out a sell signal. We had a double top on our composite index that was really telling us that we had a high chance of having down prices because we can include the new moon, and the behavior of the new moon is to have lower prices during that moon phase. All right. Hope you found this video helpful, and please watch our other videos